Sure. So that
Your name, company.
Okay. My name's Kathy Christer. I'm a partner with Gadge, Godwin Austin Johnson. I'm partner in charge of MEP, Building Services.
Okay. What is your role, or how do you see the MEP industry evolving in Dubai and the region during the past 15 years?
My role is within Gadge to look after MEP, so we're a team of about 26 at the moment. We're working on a range of projects at different stages, from concept design through to post-contract services. With the changes over the last 15 years have been quite considerable within the MEP sphere in terms of development of technologies and also use of 3D information, building information modelling, having much more intelligent content and 3D content. So say 15 years ago the drawings would have been done on two dimensions, which for MEP particularly is very difficult, whereas now it's all done in 3D modelling and very intelligent electronic content. So I'd say for me that's the primary difference over the last few years. There's a big difference also in the way that energy efficiency is perceived. Say 15 years ago electricity cost was very low and water costs were very low, perhaps subsidised, whereas now the subsidies are disappearing, so clients and everybody else is focusing much more on running costs of buildings and how those can be minimised.
Okay, so what do you think will be the next big thing in MEP? Do you see any new technology coming in the next years? Or
yeah, I think it's more the Internet of Things, whereas previously the buildings were self-contained and standalone, and that each building has a building manager or a building management system, whereas now obviously things are much more connected, and you can look at your systems from within the building or from your home or from 5,000 miles away, and you can see how your building's performing. And I think there will be much more connectivity, much more visibility, whereas it used to be quite opaque. Nobody outside the building really knew what was going on. Whereas now you can be benchmarked, and corporations are benchmarking energy performance, benchmarking air quality, benchmarking lifetime of equipment, even from the headquarters thousands of miles away, or networking the systems here. And I think that will become much more prevalent. Also in terms of infrastructure, we're looking at smart grids, so buildings being connected and using only the energy that they need when they need it, and possibly contributing electricity back to the grid, or possibly drawing off when they need it. So it's going to become much more networked and much more intelligent from an infrastructure point of view as well.
Okay, so everyone today is actually talking about IoT. I wanted to know what are the key challenges for the industry to actually reach, really very wide diffusion of IoT. What are the next steps?
Do you mean IoT as in
Internet
of Things? Yeah. I think for us it's all about maintenance. So it used to be sort of run to failure, whereas now people can interrogate the equipment and understand it used to work at this efficiency and now the efficiency is dropping off. Is it that we need to maintain it, or we need to replace the filters, or we need to replace the item of equipment? I think it's going to be much more interrogation on that basis, and ongoing maintenance, so that people can make sure their building stock is lasting longer over a lifetime, rather than waiting for something to fail and they're having to completely replace it.
Do you see Dubai or the region behind compared to international standards?
I think in terms of maintenance, historically it has not been done as well or as often as was required, but certainly I think over the last 5 to 10 years that's really changed. People now understand that to keep the building stock up to standard, they need to maintain and they need to look after things, and if you get to the point where you have a failure, it's fairly catastrophic and it costs you a lot of money, whereas it's much better to maintain your pumps, maintain your chillers, maintain your equipment as you go along, and then you're going to get the 25 years life out of it that you're expecting. But also and this is where we play a very important role is making sure that at building handover, everything is working as it should be, rather than handing over the building to the client and you're not confident that things are working. So our engineers, our post-contract engineers, have a very difficult job of making sure that at handover to the client, things are working and the client understands how to operate the building, and that can be put into use effectively from day one.
Is there any project in particular that you've been working on that was particularly challenging, or that you're really proud, about, or some building that you would say this is really an optimum in industry here?
Yeah, we're very lucky in the engineering that we do here, in that they're all architecturally led projects, so they're all bespoke and they're all unique. So sticking in my mind really is Sharjah Art Foundation, which is a few years old now, but it was a great project to be involved in as Gadge Architectural and as Gadge MEP. So it was a series of art galleries based on the footprint of old Sharjah houses. So each art gallery was on the footprint of an old existing dwelling in the area, which was really interesting for us, and obviously trying to hide the engineering services. We didn't want a big chiller compound or a big air handling unit room, so we've had to basically go inwards and again put the MEP services concealed behind one of the domestic style walls, and that's been really nice, and I've enjoyed going back over the years and visiting that. We've got several projects on site, one of which is Al Bayt, which is a hotel in Sharjah, which is again based on the old historic building footprints, and it's going to be a fantastic 5-star hotel, and really it's coming to the end of the construction period and you can see it taking shape. There's a couple of projects in Abu Dhabi which are at similar level of completion, again 5-star hotels, and everything's really beginning to come together. MEP services are a bit different because you, particularly with hotels, you've done well when nobody can see it. Nobody can see it, nobody can hear it. So by the time the projects are finished, you wouldn't really be thinking about the services, but we know what's gone on behind the scenes to get to that point. So, but yeah, for me with Gadge, I'd say Sharjah Art Foundation is one that we're particularly happy with.
I know that you you also worked on mid and high-rise buildings.
Yes.
What are the challenges when it comes to working on these high-rise buildings in Dubai? Of course,
yeah.
We have some of the tallest buildings in the world. So what are the major challenges in this building?
With high-rise buildings, it's all about the system pressures. So we have to get an efficient way of getting the water services up the building without going into bespoke high-pressure systems, or without going into systems that are really expensive. So it's a bit of a trade-off between how far can we pump the water without needing specialist systems. So there are sort of rules that we operate within, and that guides the distance between the plant rooms. And then taking that guidance, we then put in plant floors at particular levels to break the pressure. The difficult part is trying to make sure we're efficient with our use of space, because if we take too much space for the plant rooms, then the building is not efficient and the architects are not hitting the building efficiency ratings. So it's always a trade-off between how much room do we need in the core and how many interstitial plant floors we need, and trying to make sure that we're doing the best for the engineering, but we're not compromising on the usable or the sellable space of the building. But high-rise is good. It's really interesting, particularly when quite often you have a hotel and then you have residential and then you have offices, or vice versa. So it's trying to make sure that the assets are managed individually, but that the building works as a whole. And I think particularly working with architectural colleagues, they're surprised at how much space we need to make the building work. So it's always a challenge to try and get the space into the building, but not take too much so that it's, the efficiency is compromised.
So, as I understand, residential parts or buildings work differently from hotels or commercial?
Yeah. So there's different challenges. So say say if on a high rise you've got 3 different uses, you've got a hotel, maybe an office and maybe residential, quite often they're different operators or different clients. So we can't have one service serving all 3. So we need to take a separate service to the hotel and a separate service to the office and then a separate service for the residential. Or, you know, we can have a discussion with the client, say, look, we can be super efficient and have everything hanging off one backbone. But it's trying to get that guidance initially so that we're not, again, delivering something the client doesn't want or delivering the wrong thing for the outcome. Particularly, we have to think about the vertical rises and separating particularly a hotel from an office space with a plant room, so that we're not having major problems with sort of horizontal services or drainage crossing over where it shouldn't be. So it's trying to make sure we think about these things early on so that the building can be efficient in its delivery.
Okay. As we were saying, there is a growing attention in the role that women play within this industry, of course, other industries as well.
Yeah.
What was your personal experience in Dubai as a woman in MEP, where probably majority of colleagues are men?
Yeah.
Did you find any particular challenge, or did you see any change during these 15 years that you've been spending in Dubai?